Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. We have from Edgewater Family Wealth financial advisor Scott Brown and Tammy. I remember that website is edgewaterfamilywealth.com. You get all the kind of content throughout the week when we are not here talking to you. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And a happy Sunday to everybody out there in radio/internet land. So what's been going on with you fellas?
Well, just holding the earth together, trying to, herd the cats that are the market participants into the right places. Clients always think that, you're either an idiot or brilliant. There's no in between right now for the last 3 weeks. Brilliant. Oh, we're just brilliant.
That's good.
Mark it up. You're brilliant. That's just the way that it works.
Nice. Well, hopefully you have more brilliant time than you do idiot time.
It's split. Depending on who you're talking to.
Okay.
Yeah, at the house, it's mostly idiot time. But sometimes at the office, I get brilliant time. But it's, I promise you, the truth lies somewhere in between. Maybe leaning towards idiot mostly. But, I do get my brilliant moments.
Okay. Well, it really, what your job all is reliant upon various numbers and equations and everything like that. And the guy that we go to for the numbers, of course, is Tammy. Tammy, what you got for numbers?
Well, I'm waiting for the song. Yeah.
He can't move without the
Yeah,
music.
I cannot. No, now I'm back to life.
Yeah.
So the good news is the S&P, as Scott mentioned, is up. We're pretty much up from the, what we call it, the bottom for the year.
Yeah.
Which was about 23% down.
Mm-hmm.
That was...
So from the beginning of the year, we dropped our trough, if you will, was 23%.
Initially, that was the bottom.
When was that?
That was back in June.
Not that long ago.
Yeah. But now the good news is we're up from there about 12%.
About 12% off the bottom, so we're net down about 10% year to date. Yeah. So that, so there's a lesson there because you said it was June, right? So I mean, literally 2 months ago, we were down 23%. Now we're down 10%. So it goes back to the same lesson I keep trying to teach people: is if you make a bad decision and you let panic ensue, you let your emotions grab hold, and you said, let's say you had $100,000 you invested at January 1, right? And then you woke up in June and it was worth $77,000, and you thought, this is not good. I have made a bad decision. I'm going to fix this decision I've made by getting out of the thing that I put my money in. In this case, the S&P 500 is really what we're talking about, right? You say, I did a dumb thing, and I'm going to fix this dumb thing by doing a smart thing, and I'm going to put my money back in a money market or a savings account. That decision alone from June to today has cost you 13%, right? So that probably cost you about $10,000, right? Roughly $10,000. That decision, so you made a decision that you thought was a good one, and I would argue it is, and will turn out to be over the long term. And because the decision didn't immediately provide you the gratification you were looking for, your reptilian brain panicked and said, I have done a dumb thing, let me fix this dumb thing. And how you fixed it, Ryan, was by doing another dumb thing. Compounding stupidity never works, right? So again, patience, perseverance, just, stay the course. Accept your discipline, accept the decision you've made. It isn't going to be perfect. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about trying to make perfect decisions. But onward with the numbers.
All right. So going on from there, we had the CPI numbers coming out for inflation. They were good, actually. We had the first zero increase month to month since the beginning of the pandemic.
Well, that's fantastic.
That is excellent, yeah. Now, many say that is mainly because the gasoline and energy prices dropped.
Who cares what the reason is? It's going down.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's a good thing.
Goes back to that point. Exactly. So hopefully we were hoping to see that. Yes, great. Hopefully it will continue to do in the right direction.
And the market rejoiced.
Very much.
Yeah.
You saw how that turned out, like 11%, 12%.
Yeah. Market's happy. I'm happy.
So
happy market, happy Scott.
Zero is good in this scenario. Is it no news is good news scenario?
Well, in this case, because inflation was going up and up every month. So now for the first month since pandemic began, you see that, there's no increase in inflation for this month.
All right. Samesies.
Basically.
Yeah.
Hold and serve.
Yep. So to that point, and since we talked about energy, did you check anyone check the last time you filled in that car?
Yesterday I filled up.
Yeah.
And I have a big truck, so it sucks gas.
Nice. And did you see the bill? Was there any change?
Oh yeah, it was a lot less. I mean, it's still not low, but it's certainly better. I mean, to me, I probably was like $10 cheaper than the previous fill up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like $3 and something, and I was like, oh, I got to fill up now because I was playing the game where it's $4. I only do half a tank because I'm like, it has to go down.
Gasoline arbitrage, I like it.
Yes, that's my stock market.
Hey, man, I got news for you. I filled up at the Wawa over here on John Young Parkway. I don't even remember where I was going, but crazy. There's no recession at the Wawa. I'm going to tell you that right now. There was trucks coming and going, any kind of delivery vehicle, people who work on stuff, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, guys who mow grass, folks who spray grass. I mean, you name it. It was a service bonanza because the Wawa has like, I don't know, that Wawa has like 12 stalls.
Yeah.
With two gas. So there's like 24 gas pumps there. And people are just, I had to wait. I literally had to wait like 10 minutes to get to one of the pumps. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's happening in the rest of the world, but in Wawa land, there ain't no recession.
They're fine.
Yeah.
I think, you could do a study on just like how well it's going at a Wawa gas pump, just see where the economy is.
The Wawa indicator.
Yes. Is that not one of the standard indicators that
I
you guys
believe
use?
that's one of the ones I'm going to use. I mean, how many Twinkies and gas, gallons of gas were sold in that day at the Wawa?
Oh yeah, paninis they sell there.
Yeah, they have like gourmet sandwiches there, right?
With a gallon of
like I've literally had people say to me, "Have you had the steak sandwich at Wawa?" I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
What did you just say?"
Are you asking me if I've had gourmet gas station food?
I'm like, what does that even mean?
But let me ask you this question because this is what I yell at people now when they say like, "Oh, inflation's the gas price," and then I go, "No, Scott said food and gas don't count for inflation, so why would the gas prices going down affect the actual inflation number?"
Well, no, they do count, but what I say is people get all bent out of shape about it not counting because there's two numbers, right? There's the headline number, which includes, correct me if I'm wrong, Tammy, which includes gas and food, which obviously we all consume. So it is. I actually tend to agree. It's kind of silly not to include that in the equation. Maybe you can shed some light on this. There's the headline number and there's the core number. Yeah. Is it because those two things are so volatile that they kind of leave that out of the conversation sometimes?
That's one of the reasons. The other reason is inflation rate. Whenever they increase the rate, the interest rate, they target the core. Yeah. The headline they cannot control.
Right, because that's such a volatile supply and demand situation.
Gas and food, exactly. Yeah. You have different factors playing into the price.
So I think if you're the Fed for the conversation, as Tammy said, they're trying to control the core number because they can. Mm-hmm. They cannot control the headline number, which includes things that we all use. So it's a fair complaint, I suppose, to say, well, why wouldn't you? But listen, you don't need to complain. You know that both numbers are available. It's not like they're not available, right? Depending on which party's in power, the other one will pick the number they like the best that makes the other one look bad, right? So but we, the people, we have access to both numbers. So stop your belly aching. They're right there on the front page of the Wall Street Journal almost every day. You can look at the core and the headline number and go on about your business because actually after you read it, I'm not sure what you're going to do about it.
Information out there, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Did you say inflammation or inflation? Or both?
I'm currently experiencing both.
Yeah. There's ointments for the other one.
Yeah,
so I don't know about inflation.
That's what we need, some inflation ointment.
That goes with the market cap.
Yes. You can get that at Wawa. All right, anyway, more numbers, please.
So where was I leading with this? Gasoline.
Gasoline, yes.
So the gasoline actually also peaked in June 13th. So a couple of days before the S&P. Yeah. When it bottomed for 2022.
So gas peaked. The S&P, for those that can't see me at home, I have my two arms very far apart. Mm-hmm. Gasoline peaked. The market bottomed, and now we're kind of seeing them passing each other like ships in the night. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that can't be a bad thing, right? If gas prices are down, because everything's made of oil, pretty much, plastics and all the things we package in. Obviously, transportation costs go down. I was actually just talking to a buddy of mine yesterday who owns a trucking company, and he was saying, they were robbing Peter to pay Paul for a little while there. That's like we're just not going to be profitable for a minute, and that's how they dealt with it. Now that things are starting to normalize, but what about I've been reading wage pressure is up, meaning wages have increased like 5 or 6% over the last quarter. So what people take home theoretically is going up too. So the argument a month ago, rightfully so, was, well, so what, right? Because inflation is eating up all of our wage increases, so therefore, who cares, right? The if milk goes up 10% and I got an 8% raise, I'm still in the hole, right? So that was a fair pushback. But now that inflation is stabilized and maybe starting to come down, the wage increases have not slowed down. We're starting to see wage pressure increase. Obviously, unemployment's low, and that's a whole nother weird conversation for the Fed, right? Because they're trying to control inflation. They've got really low almost 60-year low unemployment.
Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah, and low unemployment is inflationary, right? Because more people are working, there's more money in the system. So it's not a stated objective of the Fed to keep inflation low, which would be a weird thing to say out loud, yes. But it is part of something they have to consider, and we can finish that thought up when we come back.
All right, we'll be right back with more It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money with Edgewater Family Wealth Financial Advisor Scott Brown, and Tammy is here as well. And we left off, we were doing the numbers, but I can't help but notice we missed those sweet, sweet sectors, Tammy.
Oh, they deserve another introduction.
Yeah, you can't just have the sectors.
You can't talk about utilities without music. I mean,
Of course, yeah. Sectors will be
silly?
upset.
Yeah.
So utilities are 7% from the year.
Up.
So
let's touch on that real quick, because a lot of people don't like, so what, right? But a lot of people are like, well, what's a defensive? If I'm uncomfortable, I don't know if I want to be totally in stocks, and I don't know how I feel about the market. Was there something that's a little more consistent or a little more defensive, albeit boring? And the answer is utilities. So we know utilities are somewhat a managed entity. There's agreements with governments. There's all kinds of things in there that kind of make them less attractive return-wise, but more attractive stability-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So, and utilities tend to pay a pretty good dividend, yes?
Usually.
Yeah, so in times of turmoil, we find that utilities are a safe haven, a place to make people a little more comfortable.
And the market thinks so, too.
And the market agrees right now. Yeah.
And so you see it 7% up. Rest of sectors are still in the negative, but the numbers are much, much better than, say, a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're rising up.
We are getting there. We don't need to talk about energy. We already know it's up there, along with the aerospace and defense industry.
Defense. Wonder why that is.
Yeah.
Coincidence?
something's happening, I heard.
Speaking of that, very quick information. So before the Ukraine war, gasoline was about 3.5.
Yeah.
Below that. And now we're almost there.
Back to where before the Ukrainian situation. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good news.
That's very good news.
Take that, Putin.
That's the only good news I ever see touted about is this war makes renewable things are going to happen faster now because they don't want as much reliance on that. So I'm like, well, that's good news for the earth. And then people are going to rely less on Russia. And I said that to Tammy, and Tammy goes, that's going to take forever.
Well, not forever, but there's a lot of hurdles that need to come up. But this is somebody said something about a crisis that
never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yes, that one. Now it's unfortunate, of course, what's happening. It's tragic, but to make sure that such a thing doesn't happen again, going that route, trying to get green will be good.
Yeah, and not just in that area. I mean, again, hopefully as Americans we learn from the issues we're having. Like COVID brought a couple up to light: chips and drugs. Right? We are not potato chips, by the way, Ryan.
No.
Yeah, these aren't Lay's we're talking about.
Look, I know the drugs that go with chips.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yes. That's not what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
At least right now. So, microchips and drugs, a lot of that, if not most of it, continues to be produced overseas. And what we realized during COVID is that ain't going to fly. So a lot of that production is coming back. So in addition to renewables and in domestic oil production, whatever your flavor, right? We need to address these things. And the good news is I think we are on all fronts, because I know our chip production, there's a lot of states trying to lure chip makers into their state to do industrial production on chips by giving them benefits or tax breaks or whatever it is. I think that's good. I think pharmaceutical companies will bring a lot of their production of drugs back on shore, and there's a few subsidies that are coming about for that. So, whether you hate government or you love government, it's a necessary evil. There was a book written called Nudge, if you ever want to understand government's role in some of these things. But government has to nudge, right? It's, obviously there's a limit. You don't want them to be too intrusive. You don't want them telling you what to do all the time. I get that, but the reality is government is in a good position when it's used properly, which is always debatable, to nudge industry, to nudge movement towards different kinds of production. Kind of, as Wayne Gretzky would say, you want to skate to where the puck's going, right? And so that's really kind of part of government's role. Are they always good at it? No, of course not, but it is part of their role. And I do agree these unfortunate incidents that are occurring in terms of COVID and the Ukrainian crisis, as awful as they are from a human standpoint, at least we're learning from those tragedies and hopefully preventing the issues we're having today from being issues in the future.
Well, for me, it always just seems like if you're going to have the important stuff, like the chips, the things that make cell phones, the things that make the cell phone towers, all of that stuff, don't outsource that because our state secrets are on those.
Yeah. So
don't send them to a quote-unquote unfriendly country to have them come, because we've seen it happen with the back doors and everything like that. So I get that there's a level of, things are cheaper to make at a certain place. Sure, like a chair, like a shirt, do that. But when it comes to issues that would involve national security, things like that, maybe we can do that here.
You think, the one I don't get is like the whole airplane thing. Like the F-35, like our top secret, best, badass plane does everything. Like yet we're shipping like a couple of dozen of them to another country. I'm like, wait, we built these really awesome planes so that we could protect ourselves, and then we sent them somewhere else? So somebody needs to call in and explain that one to me. Like, I don't quite understand that.
I think they have buttons in them that they can shut them down remotely.
Yeah. Is that right? Like in
That's
mid-flight?
what happened to the Afghanis. Like, we left all that equipment there, but they broke it in a way, and you have to have certain parts, and you just see the Taliban running around with a Humvee, but it's barely working, and they're kind of pushing it behind it. So maybe there's something to that.
Yeah. They go back to the 79 Nissan they were driving to begin with.
Yeah. More 79 Nissan, more reliable than the U.S. government Humvee. But Scott, I got a bone to pick with you, man.
Yeah, it's not new.
So I did what you said. I was like, you said invest in the S&P 500 and just do that. And I said, okay, I'm going to stop with the meme stocks. So I didn't fully invest, right? Like
Talk to me.
I set an order to where if the S&P
you
dropped,
set an order for the S&P 500. I like where this is going already.
And I was like, okay, if it drops to this point. Because what I did was I looked at the line graph, and I was like, oh, the line graph got to down here before, so I'm going to set it for that again.
Yeah.
And
because you've detected a trend.
I detected a trend.
You did a lot of research.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And look, at line graph research, I stared real hard at it.
Yeah.
And I set it for
that. You saw some squiggly lines, and you thought, hey, I'm onto something here.
Exactly. And the squiggly line, the line was low for a while. And I'm like, okay, it's a chance it could drop that far. And if it changes, I'll remember, and I'll just buy it at a little higher price or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the line went squiggle, whoop!
Yeah,
way up, like all the way. I didn't so straight up in a way that I didn't even know was possible. And now it's at I set it for 298, and I think it's at 423 right now.
And it got as low as what?
Not 298.
No, so it didn't trigger your buy, right?
No, it did not. So I missed out, and I would have made a lot of money, a lot of return on that investment had I done it.
Yeah, so, that's great. You outsmarted yourself, which is, now you're a technical analyst because you're watching the squiggly lines.
Oh, I have a lot to say about technical analysis.
The candles.
You need candlesticks and Fibonacci charts and there's all kinds of sexy words we can throw about that to me amount to about a hill of beans. But yeah, that's people do. Perfect, there's a saying, perfect is the enemy of good. And you were trying to be perfect.
Right. I wanted that bottom.
You wanted to tell your friends, I hit it right at the bottom. Listen, I know what I'm doing. I hit it right at the bottom. I think you should behold the greatness that is in front of you.
Yes.
But, of course, in doing so, you missed the opportunity to get the bounce. So what I would say to you is don't do that. People want to – I don't know what it is. It's human nature. People want to take the risk out of decisions by making them perfect. I read something the other day that the average entrepreneur, the average millionaire, billionaire type entrepreneur can make a decision with about 30 or 40% less information than the average person, right? Less, right? Because most people can't make a decision unless they're pretty darn sure whatever they're deciding about is going to work out, right? Because that's risk. That's their inherent I'm afraid mode. Should I buy a stock? Should I buy the S&P? Well, yeah, but only if I'm 99% sure. Well, you're never going to get there. You're certainly not going to get to 100%, right? And that's why people freeze for decades about decisions about their finances, because they're not quite sure if what they're deciding is going to work out. Whereas a millionaire or a billionaire mindset is, I'm going to make decisions. I'm going to make literally 2, 3, 4 more times the decisions that the average person makes about my finances. And I'm going to operate under the idea that I'm only going to get 60 to 70% of the information. Now, the reality is some of those decisions will be wrong, but what they also know about themselves is they will see that decision through and fix it, right? So if they've made a decision, it's imperfect, it's off balance, it's off kilter, they'll come back to that decision and make it right. Most people don't go wrong by making bad decisions, Ryan. They go wrong by not making decisions because they're getting information, especially today, right? You're getting bombarded with information.
Too much sometimes.
The noise is ridiculous at this point. And it's like, well, crypto's cool. Oh, memes, AMC, GameStop, now Ethereum, and you could do this all day long. You could, like, it's like, the fox and the rabbit, right? The hunters show up and the rabbit's like, hey, I'm going to run. And the fox says, well, I could climb the tree. I could swim the creek. I could jump over this. I could run this way. Meanwhile, he gets shot. The rabbit's long gone, right? He has too many decisions to make. Yeah. So you don't want to be the fox in this case, right? You're clever, but you're dead. Mm-hmm. People overthink things. And again, people, they also like to overcomplicate things. They like to say, well, if I pick the right stock and it has the right price to earnings, and what about cash to earnings, and what does their balance sheet look like? Who's the CEO? Where did they go to college? What did they study? What kind of family did they? And they could do this all day long till they're just buried in information and never make a decision. Meanwhile, the smart person says, I got some money, let's just put it to work.
All right. Well, I'm just going to put that money to work, Scott, but it just feels a little empty when you're not feeling like you're gaming the system a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Maybe that's just the gambler in me. But
maybe a tip that'll help if you look up the graph on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
See that.
More squiggly lines for you.
I'm going to need a bigger cell phone screen then, because it might only go so far.
We'll get you an iPad.
All right. We'll be right back with more It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. We have financial advisor Scott Brown, and his right-hand man, Tammy, is here as well. My name is Ryan from the Monsters, and it's just a lovely Sunday hanging out with the boys. And I've learned I made a big mistake by trying to be perfect, and it bit me in the butt, Scott. And that's what we're talking about, perfection.
Yeah. It's a problem. Perfection and cynicism. Cynicism is a tool of procrastination. People are, I use the example a lot of times with people of the shortstop with the perfect fielding percentage, but he never makes the all-star team, right?
But he's perfect.
Because he'll only take a step to his right or to his left, right? But if a ball's trying to get up the middle, he ain't diving for it. And the reason he ain't diving for it is A, he doesn't want to get dirty, and B, doesn't want to hurt his fielding percentage, right? So is he a great shortstop? I would argue he's not. Right? He's not making the all-star team because he's not making the highlight reels. He's not making the crazy play that he didn't save the pitcher's one hitter because he dove and got dirty because, heaven forbid, he make a mistake, right? So people use perfection, complexity, and cynicism to not do things, right? And it's perfectly natural to be cynical about some things and maybe about most things for a minute. But if you're continually that you're too cool to do something, like if I say to you, look, man, it's just about savings. Just pick something. Pick a good quality stock, Coke, Microsoft, Apple. I don't care what it is, the S&P 500, an ETF, and just throw some money at it every month. Wow. Really, Scott? Thank God you're here, right? They get all sarcastic and, there's some brilliant advice for me.
I got to save money to have money. What a financial genius you are.
Thank goodness you're here. Go to school for a long time for that, did you? Well, as a matter of fact, I did. But yeah, so I find that these things, people want to overthink things. What about this and what about that and what about this other thing? And I heard from my cousin who was talking to a plumber who talked to another guy. Listen, stop, because you're going to be telling me these stories for the next 6 years. Meanwhile, you could have taken a couple $100 every month, thrown it at something boring, and have 20 or 30 grand. But you're going to talk to me every time I see you about some nonsense that you heard about third hand and want to talk about it for hours. and never do anything. You have got to take action. And that's what it all boils down to, is taking action. And I find, again, cynicism, perfectionism, and complexity are the things people use to get in their own way.
Yeah, well, it's easier to, make fun of something. That's what I've always found in life, is it's easier to make fun of something to actually be involved in something. Like it comes with like things like even like charity work. We're like, yeah, you could help the homeless, I guess, but they're not going to help themselves anyways. But really doing the work is actually super rewarding and super helpful. But is cynicism a problem that, is pervasive in your industry, or do you find most people come to you with an open mind?
Well, yes and yes. So it's pervasive, but the people who typically end up in my office are not that way, or they wouldn't be there, right? There might be a varying level of it, but it's not like society at large, right? If you just walk out in the street, or you're at a concert and you talk to 50 people, most of them are going to think Wall Street's rigged. They're going to think, it's the game's rigged against them. It's only for rich people, this, that, and the other. And they say these things without ever having read up, ever having investigated, ever having actually invested on their own, right? So because that's easier. And most of the people around them agree, right? The people that show up in my office have at least in their minds taken a step away from that concept. They've said, look, I realize I've not done what I need to do, or I'd like to get better at what I'm doing. I'm going to go find somebody who knows a little bit more about it. And at the very least, I'm going to learn something. I'm curious about why some people acquire wealth and why some people don't. And if you sit around telling everybody you're too cool to do all the things that need to be done, I used to tease my son when he was a little boy. He was playing football, and he had the touchdown dance down, man. Like if he got in the end zone, which he never did, by the way.
But he had the dance ready.
He had the dance completely ready, but he was not about practice. He was not about getting hit. He was not about push-ups. And to be fair, I was a terrible football player too, so it runs in he came by it honestly. But the reality is, most people, they got the touchdown dance part figured out. It's just the push-ups and the weightlifting and the running and the sweating and the two-a-days they're not real big fans of when it comes to investing.
How much investing is that, like, Hail Mary, like that probably for you, that probably almost never happens, where you go that one big thing you get for your client, that big swift move. It's mostly just the small incremental overtime stuff.
It doesn't almost never. It never happens. And I've said this before, is I've been in business in the securities and financial advisory business in Central Florida for 35 years, actually longer than 35 years. I know the top 10 advisors in this town in terms of assets, and we're talking about, $50, $100 billion worth of assets. I know most of them. And I can tell you, with no exceptions, have any of them ever made anyone rich with a trade. Now, they may have added to wealth with a trade, but they never made those people rich. I literally had this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday. I said, look, my job isn't to make you rich. My job is to guide you to either attaining wealth or preserving wealth. And people, this is a great segue to talk about people hiring a financial advisor, and this is where they get it completely wrong. And I think this is a critical thing that needs to be said over and over and over again. Financial advisors do not make you rich. Their job is to guide you on taxes, administrative issues, required minimum distributions, complex government forms, beneficiaries, trust documents. There's a myriad of things that we're involved in as a quarterback, as a guide. Yes, we manage money, and I would argue that I'm probably better at it than you are, right? Because I've been doing it for a long time. Not because I have a different market or a crystal ball, just my emotional makeup is better for doing it than probably yours is. I have a little bit of a research. I have research help in Tammy, and that he's what he's spent most of his life learning about. So when we pick a stock, yes, I feel like it'll be a little better than the stock you pick. But on average, that's not just our job. And people go from financial. Sometimes people will be on their fourth advisor, right? Because they went to the first advisor and they said, "Look, are you going to help me earn high returns?" And what do you think the person's going to say? They want your money. Yes, that's how they get compensated. So they're going to say, yeah, I can, sure, I can get you that return, whatever it was you said, right? And then a couple of years go by, and that doesn't happen because the advisor doesn't have a crystal ball or a different market than everybody else, and they fire that advisor, and they move to the next one. And she says, "Oh my gosh, he put you in that? That's terrible. I would have never done that." And then they start the process, and this goes on 3, 4, 5 times for some people, never recognizing that that's not the advisor's job. My clients are rich. by most standards. But they're not rich because of me. They're rich because of them, because they saved, or they had a great business, or they invented a widget, or they sold a business, or who knows what they did. They were a great physician or a great teacher, or, I have teachers that are millionaires because they saved. I have lawyers who are millionaires because they make a boatload of money, right? But whatever happened, they did. I didn't do it. My job is to guide them and make sure that they don't give it back through foolish trading by chasing, say, I don't know, graphs and charts, funny little squiggly lines and things of that nature. They don't fall prey to, well, I've managed to save $1 million, but what if I took that $1 million and put it all in Bitcoin? Then I'd have $2 million. So, and here's, again, another funny thing.
Can I be cynical about that?
No, I guess I am being a little cynical. Now I'm cynical. Great. But, what cracks me up, or I don't know if it cracks me up or it makes me really sad, is people will walk in ready to retire. And I get a lot of people at that stage of their life for whatever reason. People get serious, and for whatever reason, Edgewater Family Wealth is a place they come sometimes. And they'll come in and they'll say, I have $1 million, I have $2 million, or whatever the number is. And I say, well, how did you get that money? And they say, well, I saved, I was disciplined, I didn't overspend, I didn't pay, I didn't lease a car every 2 years, we lived in our same house for 30 years, right? So what they're saying is I was a disciplined, process-oriented, boring person. Yes? And then what do they say? They say, so could you earn me 20% a year? Right? So they've spent their whole life accumulating money by being boring and doing the right thing, quote unquote, and now they want to completely change strategies the second they retire. That does not make any sense. What got them there will get them through the rest of their lives. So again, when you're hiring a financial advisor, stay away from the fancy printouts and the 5 stars and all the nonsense you're going to get shown and the fancy, because you know what? The graph they're showing you was last year. That doesn't mean anything about this year, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to buy a fund that was down 10% last year, right? If you pick up Money Magazine, like if you're in Publix tomorrow or today, and you're checking out with your hoagie, and you're like, oh, look, Money Magazine. You open up Money Magazine, and you thumb through. I will challenge anybody that's listening right now to find me an ad from a mutual fund company that has a negative return. Right? Because nobody's going to go, oh, look, hon, that fund was down 10%. We should put our money in that. Right? But the reality is, statistically, that is the fund you should buy. But see, mutual fund companies or anybody selling you anything knows that your brain's going to seek the pattern. So if they put an ad for a mutual fund in Money Magazine, I'm not picking them, it could be any of those publications, and they put an ad in that says, 2 years ago it earned 12, and last year it earned 14, what is your brain going to tell you? 12 to 16. 16, right? You're going to find the path. Thankfully, Tammy's here. Brian just completely...
Well, you looked at Tammy. I knew the answer.
Like he's like, I don't know. I think there's 2s involved. But what your brain is going to do is have you seek the pattern, right? And if the pattern is negative, you're not going to want anything to do with that investment. That's all nonsense. So you want to stay away from that. And when you hire a financial advisor, you don't want to print out. You want a partner.
So you're more like a financial Sherpa,
That's right.
Like you're guiding somebody along the way of climbing up that financial mountain to get to the top, which is a good retirement. But you're not dragging them up. No. You're just like, hey, this is what we got to do. Up ahead, some bad times.
Yep.
I know how to do this. Come with me together. Let's take it slow and climb up that financial mountain. I like that, financial Sherpa.
It works for me. Step here, don't step there.
There we go. And you can find out more from our financial Sherpas from Edgewater Family Wealth. Sticking around, we'll be right back with more It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money on Real Radio 104.1. We've got Scott and Tammy from Edgewater Family Wealth. EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com, of course, is the website. They also have a blog section where you can see all of the past episodes for It's Only Money. They've got financial talk with Tammy for all the finheads out there and all kinds of that and more. Plus, if you want to get a hold of Scott, that is the best way to do it. And we do take emails that we answer from the show, and you can email us, edgewaterfamilywealth@raymondjames.com. And I got some interesting ones, Scott. Ones that I don't have an answer to because I'm unfortunately under-equipped, so to speak, to answer this first question. So this first question comes from Rachel, and Rachel says, I'm a mom. I love being a mom, but I was not the best with money as a kid. No one really showed me how to do it. When and how is the best time to start teaching your children about money and how to manage it?
Well, I mean, I think if they're at an age, and I don't know what age this would be, I don't remember. My kids are grown now, but I'm trying to think back. I mean, I think they can start to begin to understand concepts probably around kindergarten age.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so, because, there's give and take. They want stuff, right? Kindergartners, I was a kindergartner. I wanted anything I could, candy, any fancy toy, a commercial on TV. I wanted it. Whatever that thing was, I want baseball cards, whatever it was, I wanted that to be purchased for me with no understanding of where that money came from, how that money was attained. So I think again, I think you could do it in kindergarten. The obvious ones, allowances. People give their kids an allowance. That starts the budgeting process, right? We're handing you $5 or whatever the number is. You get to spend that on whatever you want, but when it's gone, right? That's where a lot of parents go wrong. Is we all want our kids. We don't like to disappoint our children. We like to see them happy. It's oh wow, what is $1 to me for that thing, right?
Right.
And we all do it. I'm guilty of it.
Because it's hard because they generally are like cute people, tiny people, and if you don't do it, then they make loud noises at you.
They are well equipped to make you pay if you don't make them happy. Yes, especially on an airplane. But yeah, so I think that is something you need. I mean, we all do it. Again, spoiling your kid for a second isn't the end of the world. But I do think there's a limit to that, and there's a point where that becomes a problem for you. And we see it in grown-ups. We see people that still live in their parents' basements in their mid-30s because they've been given because mom's still going down there and bringing them their Mountain Dew while they're playing video games, right?
That sounds nice.
Yeah. that's a thing that to be avoided. So how we avoid that is by teaching them disciplines and giving them an allowance. Something I did for my son when he went to college is I gave him a budget, first of all. Well, two things I did right away is I gave him a budget. And the other thing I did was I said, this is your cutoff point. There's an age where you and I are done with this part of our relationship. And make no mistake, that will happen. Whether you're prepared for it to happen or not, it's going to happen. Because I could see around me some of my peers and what was happening with their children, and these were often people with means, and I thought, not good, right? So I didn't want my son living in my basement, and I don't have a basement, which would really be weird.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is I said, look, here's your date, here's the end. So he knew 5 years out, 4 years out, 3 years out, he needed to come correct, and he did, thankfully. But the other thing that I stole when I was in college, I had a friend whose dad, and they were people of means, to be fair, certainly more means than I had, but his dad matched what he made in college. I thought this was the coolest concept. So if he went and worked at Subway, and I think he actually did work at Subway, he would go to work at Subway, and if he made $500 that month, his dad would match the $500 up to a certain limit, right?
Okay.
And I always thought, wow, that's cool, because I had to work. Nobody was matching my Publix money, but I still thought it was a neat idea.
Did you have Publix stock when you worked there?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And
it's the only way to get it.
Like an idiot, I sold it because I was broke when I got out of college. But the Publix stock is like printing money.
Yeah.
We can go into that at some point. But I always thought that was cool, so I did that for my son. He worked at Tijuana Flats at one point, and cut chicken and did all the horrible jobs they have to do there. But he knew if he made a few $100, I would match that few $100. So that was a thing I thought was cool. But we don't teach it in schools, right? We teach a lot of things that are somewhat useless, not all of them. But we don't teach people how to balance a checkbook or the evils of debt and credit card debt and people that are predatory lenders. And you shouldn't take out a $200,000 student loan to get an English degree from Wake Forest. That's probably not a great idea, right? So we don't teach people these trade-offs. But that's changing because in our state, I have to give credit where credit's due. There's an initiative by the government, DeSantis and company. I think we had Anna Eskamani on, and she was on board with it. So the Democrats and the Republicans both agree that's something we need to address, which is rare. So that's a good thing. And we are addressing financial literacy, and I now see that a lot of states are following suit. So the answer to the question is, I think 3 or 4 years old, they can start to grasp those concepts. And the problem for the parent is parents are busy, right? And it's hard to resist just here, go get the thing. Here's $5, leave me alone kind of thing, right? You have to resist that urge. And I'm being completely honest, I did not always resist the urge, but I did it enough that it seems to be panning out with my kids anyway.
I do that with my dog when she's like, I want to go for a walk. I'm like, not today, dog.
Yeah, you got to teach the dog discipline.
Next question comes from Chad, and he says, hey, guys, I just got a 401k for my work, but when I went to check it out, it gave me several different options of which 401k I could take part in, whether it's managed or unmanaged. Which way is the best way to go?
Yeah, so again, let's get back to perfect is the enemy of good. There is no best way. There's just what works for you, right? So most 401ks will give you this menu of funds, and it might have 30 funds in it. And there's a small cap fund and a large cap fund and an international fund and a that fund and a this fund, and they all have really interesting, cool names, new opportunities, Bill's Fantastic Fun Voyage, something. Yeah. They're all really cool names, right?
I bet they hire someone to get those names.
A marketing team of some kind to create the names for these mutual funds, right? And listen, we keep it simple. If you want to pick funds, look for something that's not super expensive because for a second, let's talk about growth funds. If you buy a big blue chip growth fund and it's managed by XYZ company, you need to know that all they're doing is kind of hugging the S&P 500. They don't want to get too far from the S&P 500 lest they earn a return less than the S&P 500 and their clients go, you didn't even keep up with the index, right? They don't want to hear that.
At least, yeah.
Right? So they hug the index, but they charge you more to hug. Why don't just buy the index then, right? The index is considerably cheaper, and every 401k, I'm willing to bet, has a cheap S&P 500 option. Listen, I'm not just pitching the S&P 500 all the time. It's the simple example. Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't want to pick the funds, and most people don't know one fund from another, I mean, we get calls all the time in the office, can you walk me through my 401k options? Sure. They always have managed options, and they're coming one of two flavors. They're either a lifestyle product, which means there's a date, right? And they say, if you're going to retire in 2030, there's a fund called 2030, and they manage the risk in that fund to meet the objective of retiring in 2030. Mm-hmm. There's another flavor, which is just risk-based. There's a growth, a balanced, a conservative, right? And there might be a few in between. But if you say, I'm a balanced person, if you ask the average person, I'm balanced, they don't really know what it means, but that's what they say. Right, so that's going to have 60% of your money on average in stocks and 40% in bonds. It's not going to be a super bouncy ride, but you should participate in 70 to 80% of the upside of the S&P 500. Which brings me back to the point: maybe you should just buy the S&P 500. But so again, there are managed options where they just pick for you. I'm going to retire in 2035. Pick the 2035. Or there's the flavors, which is conservative, balanced, or growth. There's no right or wrong. Now, what I will say that people do wrong is they will buy a lifestyle 2035, for example, and the 2040, right? You're defeating the purpose when you blend models, right? Because what you're saying is manage my money to my specifications, but you're giving them two specifications, right? You're saying, I might retire in 2035, I might retire in 2040. Well, which is it, right? You need to make that decision. Not that you can't change it, but buying two is kind of counterproductive. That's, again, like saying, I'm going to buy the growth and the conservative. Again, which one is it? So you can't hedge your bets against yourself. I mean, you could, but the hedges are already inherent in the products. Yeah. So you're kind of belt and suspenders there, right? It's a little redundant. So then the last thing I'll say about that is every plan has an advisor attached to it, most if not all the time. And these people tend to show up in their suits and sign you up and disappear. Don't let them disappear. Hold them accountable. These are typically smart people that understand the products. Drag them in, call them up, send them an email. Hey, remember you signed me up for this thing and now you're taking $200 a month from me. I need to talk to you about this. Give me some guidance. That's, I would say, on average, the best thing to do from the start.
I was surprised when I signed up for mine. They, like you said, they have really cool names, and I was like, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They're super interesting names, and I believe I picked mine based off of the coolest sounding name.
Megatron Fund.
The last question comes from me, Scott. And so I saw this poll done by The Economist and YouGov, and it was talking about conspiracy theories and how much people believe in them and various ones. Mm-hmm. This one was split 50-50, and I want to hear your thought on this real quick.
The earth is flat, yes.
As we got about a minute left. But it was 41% believe, 41% don't, and then 18% were unsure. And the question was, regardless of who is officially in charge of the government or other organizations, there's a single group of people who secretly control events and rule the world together. Thoughts?
Wow. So regardless of who's in power, who gets elected in any given country, there's a group of people somewhere doing the Montgomery Burns with their fingers in the basement somewhere.
Yes. Are you on? Because it's split dead even. It's crazy.
Look, it's time we put this to rest.
Are you part of it?
I'm part of it. I actually am it. It's just Amy and I.
Sweet. Well, I'm glad I work with you. And if you want to work with one of the people in charge, no, obviously kidding. But I found that to be so fascinating because I've definitely heard. You hear that in passing. You're like, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's not you can't disprove it, right?
Right.
That's why it still exists.
Well, either way, if you want somebody who's in charge of your, money, be a financial Sherpa, if you will, to help you out, so you don't, hit the wrong hole on the mountain of financial success, Edgewater Family Wealth is the way to go with that. And you can contact Scott or Tammy by going to edgewaterfamilywealth.com. That's the website. They have the It's Only Money episodes. They got the blogs there. They got Fin Talk with Tammy and more. So check that out. Scott, Tammy, beautiful Sunday with you, gentlemen.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
And we'll see you next time on It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1.